Hey, Mike with No Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be covering a new Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 9 great RPG deals, so let's get into it. The first game on today's list is Regalia of Men and Monarchs, the Royal Edition. Now this is a tactical RPG where you play as heroes who have recently inherited a kingdom from their father, and unfortunately this kingdom has gone to shambles and really been decimated over time. On top of that, it's acquired a mass amount of debt, and you'll actually need to go on different quests and a journey to earn money to pay off this massive debt. So the story itself is pretty funny and quirky, and it combines that fun adventure with tactical based combat. On top of that, the game has a unique calendar mechanic where you'll only be able to take so many actions before the debt collector comes again and you need to pay them off. And so you'll need to balance between building out your kingdom, developing relationships with characters, and taking on combat within each chapter. And you can't really hope to do everything, so you'll need to strategize how to best maximize your team throughout the game. The combat in this game is pretty tough, and you do have a lot of different strategic options available as well, where you're not necessarily just limited to movement and then action, or action and then no movement. You can really do a bunch of different combinations of both, and so this will lead to some additional strategies as you play the game. If you're looking for a tactical RPG with a fun story, challenging combat, and addictive gameplay, I think this one's worth checking out. The next game on today's list is Fairy Tail. And so this turn-based RPG is based on the Fairy Tail anime and manga, and it takes place 7 years after an epic battle as you try and stop the Dark Guild. And during these 7 years, your guild has fallen on hard times and become the worst guild in the land, and so you'll go on a quest to restore your guild in hopes of rebuilding your guild and becoming the best in the land. Now the story takes place a decent way into the manga or anime series, and so you'll be introduced to a lot of different characters and plot points pretty quickly. So most likely this game is really geared more towards fans of the manga or anime, but I definitely think it has a solid RPG backbone behind it, where even if you're not a fan of the anime or you're new to it, I think you could still enjoy this game. You'll be taking on a lot of different quests, like retrieving items, helping villagers, and rebuilding your guild house, and then it has that turn-based RPG backbone on top of it. The game has a lot of different playable characters to choose from and unlock, and the combat features grid-based combat, and each one of your unique characters will have different elemental focuses, which can play into the strategy throughout combat. It can be definitely addicting trying to complete all the different quests and rebuilding your guild. And so while I think the game, again, is more suited towards fans of the Fairy Tail anime and manga, because of this addicting gameplay and fun RPG mechanics, I think even if you're not, this could help you get into Fairy Tail and still be enjoyable either way. The next game on today's list is Children of Morta, the Complete Edition. And so this game is a pixel art hack and slash RPG meets roguelike dungeon crawler. And you'll play as the Bergson family as they stand guard and face off against evil and corruption that's destroying the land. And so throughout the game, you'll slowly unlock additional characters from the Bergson family, each one all having their own unique playstyle and abilities. You'll have a combined skill tree for the entire family, and so as you start the game, you'll slowly build up those characters' levels, but over time you'll be able to power up all of them together throughout your skill tree through additional runs. Another feature of the game is that characters will get tired over time and they'll need to rest, otherwise they'll suffer from negative stat decreases, and so this can force you to play with new characters versus just sticking with one or two the entire time. Another cool feature is the game has local co-op, so you can play through the dungeons with a friend. On top of that, as you're exploring the different dungeons, there's even some different mini games you'll encounter, such as this game's version of Pong and much more. I think if you're looking for an addicting roguelike RPG, Children of Morta is definitely one of the best, and I recommend checking it out. The next game on today's list is As Divine Hearts. And so this game is more of a classic-inspired, retro, turn-based RPG. And the general plot of the game is that there's two deities that rule over the world. One the light deity and one the shadow deity. And recently, monsters have been spawning a lot more across the land and attacking the populations. And your team of heroes will actually encounter a talking cat that claims to be the light deity in disguise. And so you'll go on a quest trying to restore the power of this talking cat in hopes of saving the land. So it's kind of a fun and quirky story that starts off sort of slow, but really gets intense as you go along throughout the game. And as I mentioned, it is more of a retro-inspired turn-based RPG. And so it's going to play a lot like classic games from the Final Fantasy series, where it's a little bit more linear to start, but over time as you progress through the game, things open up a bit, giving you some options on how you want to explore from there. It also features some trust development mechanics and relationship building, similar to series like Fire Emblem, and as you build up these trust meters, it has the potential to unlock different endings throughout the game. Characters can develop skills throughout the game, and it also has a unique gem system where you can equip abilities to characters, and it functions a little bit like Tetris where you have to mix and match gems that fit in a certain order to attach abilities to characters. I think if you're looking for another retro-inspired classic turn-based RPG, you'll definitely enjoy this game as well. The next game is Atelier Ryza. And so in this game, it's a turn-based RPG that focuses very heavily on exploration and crafting, and you'll play as Ryza and her friends as they go on an adventure in hopes of escaping their boring town. On top of this, they'll try and unravel the deep mysteries surrounding alchemy as they embark on their journey. Now the game's story is more of a lighter RPG. It doesn't pull you in with some epic world-ending scenario right away, but again really focuses more on the overall exploration and crafting to build up your characters through the game. It features turn-based battles, but it also has a real-time-ish feel to it, where combat doesn't necessarily wait for you to make all your moves as your characters, which can keep combat going at a fast pace. The game has a really cool anime art style and a large world to explore, plus extensive voice acting and great music as well. If you enjoy crafting and scavenging the world for items and turn-based RPG mechanics, I think this is another great one worth checking out. The next game on today's list is Steamworld Quest. And so this RPG is a steampunk-themed turn-based RPG, and you play as 3 robot friends as they go on a quest to stop an ancient evil. And so the game has a fun, quirky sense of humor to it that's full of puns, and it combines turn-based combat with deck building to create some addicting combat and gameplay. And so you'll build a deck of cards for each character in your party, and they will contribute those cards to your overall deck. And so you'll draw these cards on your turn and be able to utilize them, unleashing attacks, buffs for your characters, healing characters, debuffs for enemies, and more. And throughout the campaign, you'll also be able to upgrade cards and craft new cards, which can further enhance your deck. The game also has some dungeon crawling and exploration, where you can find different items and take on enemies and challenging bosses. If you're looking for a fun RPG that utilizes addicting deck building mechanics, this one is definitely worth checking out. The next game on the list is For the King. And so For the King is kind of a combination of a turn-based RPG that combines roguelike elements with tabletop gaming. And so at the start of the game, you'll choose from several different campaigns that each have their own unique story and adventure. And at the start of these campaigns, you'll choose from several different characters, each with their own play style and classes, featuring classic fantasy-based characters like mages and more. And so each one of these campaigns will probably last you around 5 to 10 hours. Some are shorter than others, but it also incorporates roguelike elements, making each campaign a unique experience every time you play. And so you'll encounter different events as you play across the world, like villages that appear, dungeons you can go into and explore, and enemies you'll face off against. You have overworld combat that is that turn-based combat, but then there's also some dungeon crawling elements where you'll face off against many different battles in a row, trying to survive and to find great treasure. On top of that, you can actually play the game with local co-op as well, and some of the campaigns even feature player versus player activity as well. And so if you like dungeon crawling, tabletop RPGs, and addicting roguelike elements, this one is definitely worth checking out. The next game on today's list is Indivisible. And so Indivisible, you play as a young girl as she teams up with a bunch of different other heroes as they go on a quest to save the world from an ancient threat that was originally defeated by her father and another band of heroes in the ancient past. And this evil is once again threatening the world, and you go on a quest to stop it. And so this is another unique RPG where it combines action platforming Metroidvania style gameplay with turn-based combat. And so the combat itself also isn't strictly turn-based, as each character will be associated with a button on your controller And so you'll need to actively control which characters are attacking and strategically set up your party with each character as they work well with each other, and you can take advantage of certain elemental weaknesses of enemies as well as environmental hazards that can either help or hinder your team. It features a really cool hand-drawn art style, great music, and addicting combat, and exploring the world is a lot of fun. The game does have some heavy difficulty spikes at times, which can be frustrating, but if you can look past that, this is another cool indie RPG worth checking out. Alright, the final game on today's list is Fort Triumph. And so the story itself of this game is sort of a parody of fantasy RPGs to begin with, and you'll play as a band of unlikely heroes that is going on quests basically just for the money. But outside of that, the game features interesting tactical combat that combines your combat with environmental physics based on the stages you're in. And so, for example, you'll be able to send boulders at enemies, or knock down walls, or pillars from towers onto enemies. And utilizing these environmental features is really a key to victory throughout the game. The battles themselves are also procedurally generated, and so this will keep you on your toes, where every battle is going to be a different experience each time you play. On top of that, it also has some base building elements similar to classic real-time strategy games. There's several different factions heroes can be a part of, and also different classes heroes can choose from as well, giving you even more variety. And you can even play the game with local co-op as well. There's several difficulty options you can choose from, making the game more accessible. The game also has permadeath as a feature, but this can be turned on or off depending on how challenging you want the game to be. I think if you like tactical RPGs and are looking for a fun story that parodies other fantasy RPGs, you'll enjoy this game. But again, that wraps up this video on this latest Nintendo eShop sale and 9 new RPGs worth buying. And if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you're going to pick up any of these games or have played these games before, let us know your thoughts on them in the comments below. And if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, check out one of our other videos here. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out, and to make sure you don't miss out on any future deals in upcoming Switch sales. But with that said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.